loves Thanksgiving because you get to hang out with your family, right? I don't know if anyone else feels the same way, but I hear from a lot of people that it can be a very stressful time, holidays, because you're with your family, there's a lot of stress that comes with your family. So the great thing though is that, I don't know if you guys have heard this statement, you can't pick your family, you can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends. So that's what we get to talk about tonight. And so we're not just going to move into our small groups like she was talking about, we get to have another great speaker come up. And so Camille is going to come up and speak. She is a mental health practitioner right here in Eden Prairie, works with people dealing with some pretty significant health issues when it comes to mental health, and sees what happens when people don't have those connections to friends. So everybody, let's welcome Camille.
Just stand over there. Is there a...
There is a clicker, but I can see if it's...
I have fancy slides that have text sliding in and out. So.
I didn't see it.
I can stand over there too. So, before we actually get started, I watched the videotapes, and one of the things that kind of struck me is that there was this assumption that we have friends that we can partner with to do some hard work in our lives and to begin to hold us accountable to doing something different than what we've done before. And so the presentation that I put together tonight for you guys is to just really talk about friends and how do we make friends, what are the benefits of friends, how can we be a friend? And hopefully it ties in well with this.
So I'll help you out. You just tell me and I'll...
I can stand over there, sir.
Do you want to?
Yep, I can stand. So one of the things that I was able to do when I was a stay-at-home mom before I went into the mental health field is I had the pleasure of working out with my friend every morning. She would meet me at the end of my driveway, and we would spend the next hour together running. Not that we ran very fast, but we also talked the entire time. But it not only did it help my physical body, but it also helped my mental health as well, because she listened to everything I had to say, all my frustrations about being a stay-at-home mom and just raising kids and a husband that traveled a lot. And I was able to do that for her too. And so there was this, we looked forward to that time together that we had because we were able to be in relationship with each other and to really be a friend to one another, which means to be kind of in this symbiotic relationship. So tonight we're going to jump into that. So the first thing I was thinking about was, we have acquaintances, right? So these are probably the people that are, sometimes our friends on Facebook, sometimes we don't really know them all that well, or they might be somebody that we've partnered with on LinkedIn, they're a connection on LinkedIn, or maybe they're just somebody that we know from work. We just kind of know them, but we're not in a deep relationship with them. Kind of like maybe these two guys, right?
That might be generous.
So then there's a friend. A friend's a person who knows us, who we have a bond with. There's kind of a mutual affection. It's not necessarily family, and there's not any sexual or intimacy kind of going on in this relationship with a friend. And so it might look more like a companion, or we might call them our soulmates, our BFF, our BF, our, all of those words that we come up with that would describe us as a friend. And so it might look more like this. You guys all remember friends? So some of the benefits of friendships that I think are important is the sense of connectedness. I'm not in this alone, that I have somebody that I can connect with, partner with, and they will be with me. There's a connection. I feel connected with a sense of belonging and something bigger than myself when I am connected with other people. So this is where my fancy text comes in. It also, when we have friends, there's also this sense of loneliness that we have if we are in isolation. And coming from the mental health field, I talk with a lot of people who struggle with friends and feel really lonely and very isolated. And when we have friends, there's this sense that, again, we belong and that we matter to somebody and to something bigger than ourselves. The other thing is that we can be a sounding board. Like I talked about, running with my friend was a great thing to do because I could say just about anything and she would listen to me and support me. And it was just good to know that I was heard and that she listened and that she was going to listen to me no matter what. The other benefit of friendships is that we have trust. And I think this is probably the key part of our relationships. If you think about if you're married and you have a spouse, the trust that you have between each other. I've got your back, I'm there for you, I'm going to defend you. That it's a key kind of part of that, and it's a two-way street, that it goes both ways for each one of us. When we have trust in our relationships, we have the ability to be more open and honest with each other. That we know that, you'll hear me talk about this a couple times tonight, that when I can trust you, I am able to be more vulnerable with you, and I can tell you some of the things that I'm really struggling with. And I'm not going to be holding that back, because I know that if I can trust you to not judge me, but to just accept what I have to say, that I'm going to be safe with you. And so the next one is the many benefits of your health, right? So when we are in community and connected with other people, there are studies, and I'm not going to go into all of the studies about how you lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol, you feel less stressed in your life, because you have, again, this sense of connectedness to something greater than yourself. I think there's one more here. There's also a lower stress level. So, again, the isolation can cause a lot of stress for people, and when they're, again, connected and feeling a part of something, there's less stress for them. And then, obviously, lighter load, right? You don't want a lighter load. I think there was, when I used to do things in the church quite a bit with younger children, we would always say, many hands make light work, right? And so, lightens your load. It helps you feel that you're not in it alone. So then I thought, well, let's just think about what is a friend. When I talk with people, oftentimes how they learn to be a friend is, does anybody remember your middle school or high school years? And friends. One day you're friends with somebody, the next day nobody's your friend, then you have to find a whole new group of friends, and then nobody will talk with you again, and you're constantly kind of finding these friends. And so if we don't kind of learn how to be a friend past our middle school, high school experience, then we really struggle with this. So I thought, let's talk about what is it? What is a friend? So a friend really is one who desires what is best for each other. So we're not kind of in it for ourselves, but we really want and desire and want to help that other person reach their goals. We want them to be the best that they can be, and we're willing to help them get there, which means we also need to be vulnerable in our relationships and sometimes say things out of love, like Pastor Warren said, to help that person and edify that person to be the best that they can be. And sometimes we don't always see our own weaknesses, our own blind spots. The other part of being a friend is to be able to listen and to be sympathetic and empathetic when somebody is sharing something tough with you. To not, I use this word a lot, not to collude with them necessarily, but to be that person who can be somewhat objective for them and listen to them when they're having a tough time. There's this honesty piece. Honesty goes along with being vulnerable. In order to be honest, we need to be vulnerable and share the things that might be hard to share, and vice versa, right? When we're also giving that back to somebody else, that we're able to be honest with them, and again, in love and respect for them, and to know where they're coming from, and to be honest about if they ask us, to be honest in our answer. Mutual understanding and compassion. I think that's, again, that ability to kind of give and take in your relationship, and to know that you're willing to listen, and that you'll do that for each other. Enjoying each other's company is always good. So oftentimes we find friends or we become friends with people who enjoy the same activities that we do or are part of the same organization, but we really enjoy spending time with each other. It's something that we look forward to, that we're going to plan in our schedule or in our day to do something with our friend. And then I talked about this already, but being able to trust one another. So as you look at this list, do you see some of those qualities in yourself? So the last one, ability to be oneself without fear of judgment. This one is sometimes hard for people, that this fear of judgment that we have about, can I really be authentic? Can I be myself without somebody judging what I'm going to do, what I'm going to wear, what I say, how I look, am I educated enough? Do I have the right friends? Do I live in the right house? And all these things that we kind of judge one another about can also be difficult in friendships and can get in the way of us developing strong friendships. So one of the things I wanted to do tonight, and what I hear often about living in Minnesota, is that we tend to be very closed off in making new friends. So when new people move to, specifically, I've only lived in the Twin Cities area, but when I talk with people, they're like, I have a really hard time making friends in Minneapolis. It seems like everybody has these closed friend groups that they've had since they were in high school, and I cannot make inways. So I thought tonight we'll just take a couple minutes and just among yourselves, if you want to work together in pairs or whatever, we can come up with some ideas that we can share with each other about how do you meet new people? How do you do that? So in elementary school, high school, junior high, middle school, whatever we called it, we had kind of friends readily available to us, right? There was somebody new, we were on a team maybe together with them, we were in the choir, but we were able to make friends. But now as adults, how do we open up our friend groups? How do we open up and become friends with new people? So just take a couple minutes and see if you guys can come up with some ideas about that. Okay, so let's get back together and see what some of the ideas that you have. I'll go kind of through my list, and then I'm going to have you guys add some to it, and you probably sleep our list about it. So, at work, meet some people at work, at school or a class that you attend. So, like this class, you've met. How many people are in this group usually? 17 or something? You've met 17 new people by just attending this class. Past friends, oftentimes we kind of lose connection with friends, and so, I think about a childhood friend I have from second grade. I'm still friends with her. I don't see her very often, but literally we just pick up where we left off the last time, and I maybe see her once every year or two. Sometimes it just depends on what's going on in her life, and she only lives in Stillwater. But Stillwater, from where I live in Wayzata, seems like a hike away. So it just is difficult. Sometimes we can meet people at social gatherings. So a person might have been at a gathering or a gala that you've been at, or some other place that you've been. Sometimes you can share family ties. How many times do you meet people at like family events and then you see them in the community, or you begin to see them more frequently? I think about weddings are sometimes a way of people kind of coming together and meeting new people, or you find out that you have these connections. It's 1 or 2 degrees of separation, right? You find out how close we are to people. Attending community events, volunteering, I think, is a great way to meet new people because you're sharing kind of a common interest. When people extend invitations to you to do things, making sure that you accept those invitations when you get those, and then taking up a new interest. So I remember at one time when I was a stay-at-home mom, I took up tennis. It was probably the most brutal thing I've ever done in my life, but I met a lot of great people. I played competitively for about 7 years, but I had literally never really played tennis. It was a very humbling experience. So, and I was determined to figure out how to play tennis, but I met a lot of great people through that, and it helped me kind of reduce that isolation I felt by being a stay-at-home mom with kids. So, and then our faith communities. So let's see, let's just go around. Should we start kind of with this group here in the front on the right? And what did you guys come up with? Anything? I bet you guys came up with more things than I came up with.
One thing I mentioned with these meetup groups that are in the Twin Cities. I mean, that has to do with interests.
Yeah. And is that, you can just like Google Meetup, right? And then
You just Google Meetup and then and it's expansive. I
It
mean,
is.
It's a lot of things from single parenting to people with small children. Can go as much as hiking, camping. I mean, it's just, or what was that one that you found, that good food or something like that? There was some kind of
There's
food.
one, there's some other bird ones too.
No, there are some really weird ones too.
Yeah.
I mean, you just kind of, you choose which ones you might be interested in, and then maybe link into those. I mean, we looked for a couple that were just, Christians,
Yeah.
related. So, and then you get bombarded with all of them, which I can't believe you didn't help a lot. But still, I mean, it is a venue or an avenue to meet people
Yeah.
of similar interests, maybe.
Exactly.
Values.
Yeah, those similar interests are important. Okay. Anything else from your group?
Well, we talked about, networking and, being involved in the business community, and that's a way. But we also talked about how hard it is to penetrate a Minnesotan circle, right? I mean, so you meet new people, that's great, but are you gonna get to, how do you go to the next level? So,
We'll talk a little bit about that tonight. Yeah. And there's a sense of vulnerability in this, isn't there? That you have to put yourself out there and to take that risk. And it's sometimes easier for the extrovert people in the room to be able to do that, and sometimes the introverted people, that's really, there can be some social anxiety around, getting out there and meeting new people. So, all right, let's do the group in the back. Did you guys have anything that? No?
Nothing different.
Nothing different? Okay. How about the group over here?
I think we had a few, like, I would imagine community events would fall under like our kids were involved in sports, at least for us.
Yeah.
And so then you get to know families that way because it was very similar passions, similar interests.
Yeah.
So that's helped them.
It's different when your kids are grown and you don't have little kids to go to their sports events. So I just moved here within the year from Canada, so I've done lots of those things. And it is really hard to break in, very difficult. Neighborhood book club, that's one way to kind of come in there a little bit.
That's good. Yeah. Bunko, if there's a neighborhood bunko group
Right.
or whatever
Yeah.
groups. Yeah, those are great. Those are great things. National Night Out, if you need to meet your neighbors, sometimes your neighbors already, there. But yeah, it can be really hard and kind of intimidating, and you have to really put yourself out there and be vulnerable. So, okay. We forgot the one on the bottom, join a gym. Anybody find that to be helpful? Joining a gym, a yoga studio, spin class, things like that. Partners well with what you're trying to do in the day plan, I would imagine. All right. So how do we, once we kind of put ourselves out there, then what can we do to begin to nurture those relationships? So the first one I thought is kind of be kind. It's like, it sounds so basic, but it's kind of the core to be successful in adult relationships, I think. That we think of friendship as kind of this emotional bank a little bit, and I talk with people about this when I do marriage counseling, is that, like for every one kind of negative comment, you need 10 positive comments to kind of refill that bank again. So I'm, in my friendships, and this may be right or it may be wrong, and you may agree with me or not, but when I sometimes feel hurt or sad about something that's happened in a relationship with a friend, I am very slow to go back to my friend to talk with my friend about that. I first kind of do a moral inventory of myself. What about that situation is triggering for me or making me feel sad. So I really kind of look at myself first before I go back and talk to my friend about it, because oftentimes I find that it's something going on with me and it has far less to do with that other person. So I'm very cautious around, being kind and thoughtful in my relationships and really checking myself first. So, just a thought. I think listening, I think Rick Warren talked about this too, is just being a good listener and paying attention to the things that are important to your friend and the things that matter to them. I'm not great at this, but I have some friends who are really good about finding just the perfect gift for you, because they've listened to you, they watch kind of your patterns, they watch what you wear already, or whatever, and they can find just the perfect thing just by like paying attention to conversations and listening to what's important to you. We talked about opening up, so just keep talking about that tonight. Showing that you can be trusted. So I think this is another one that we have to be careful with. When we're in relationships, and maybe we didn't necessarily learn this in middle school or high school, is that when I'm talking with somebody that they're telling me things that they don't want to necessarily be repeated again. And so my mantra in that is that if I want to be a trusted and confident, and I want to be a person that my friends come to, then I do not repeat what they say to me. And because I say this, it is not my story to tell. Their story is not my story to tell. And I take that as far as I don't add that to the prayer chain at church either. If they ask me to do that, I will do that. But again, it's not my story to tell, unless I can keep that, their name confidential or something. But that's where you can really lose, I think, the confidence of your friends and characters. Making yourself available. So if you do get that invitation to something, that you're able to say, yeah, I'll do that. Or if you say no, tonight doesn't work or whatever, that in order to reciprocate that, right? We're trying to look for these reciprocal opportunities, is that then we take the initiative next time to ask them, I can't go to dinner on Tuesday night, but would you be interested in going on Thursday night? Something like that. So they know that you're interested. And they're interested in doing that. Staying positive, I think I've already talked about that. Not to bring all of your baggage, but to think about sometimes how your own kind of hard emotions or tough emotions can impact somebody else. Friendly attitude and demeanor, I think that goes right hand in hand. And then being in that give and take. So I thought it would be kind of important to do a few of the signs you're missing the mark. Okay, so not to be the dumb downer, but projecting your own negative qualities onto somebody else. I don't know if you're in a relationship with somebody who does that, but oftentimes there can be this projection of their own kind of, if they see the world in a negative way, or they see something that they just assume that because you're a friend of theirs, you feel the same way. So I'm sure we feel a little bit about like that about politics some days. Like just because I think this, everybody else does too. Which isn't always true. Criticizing or blaming them for everything, I think I gave you that example already of just, being really careful, because our relationships can be fragile. We don't know where other people are coming from, and also how equipped people are to deal with emotions. Some of us are great about kind of managing emotions and feelings and expressing those, and other people it's really hard for them to do that. That feels kind of like you're kind of putting on them. So just being aware of that. Spending time together only when needing something. So I only call my friend when I need them to help me with something, but not just because I want to call them and talk with them and just check in on, hey, how's your life going? Or how are things going? I haven't heard from you for a while, just wondering what's up. Evading all responsibility and leaving them to handle it all. So sometimes we can get into, I just remember times when I was part of the vacation Bible school, and it was like the Three Musketeers that ended up doing everything, because the rest of the friends left when the work needed to be done. They all scattered. Or like I had a son who played basketball, and so at the basketball tournaments, it's like, okay, when the basketball tournament is all over, where are the friends? They're gone. So you're picking up chairs till midnight, Never think about how the other person may feel. So again, kind of having that dual lens of reciprocating. So you know how you're feeling, like, how's your friend feeling? What's going on with your friend? And being able to ask some of those questions. One-upping. This sometimes happens, doesn't it? Where somebody tells a story and then they jump in and their story's even better than your story, or, oh, I can't believe that happened to you. Listen to what happened to me, and we just kind of one-up. Which, what does that do for our friend? It invalidates their story. And so when we are listening to our friends, the most important thing is that people want to tell you things because they want to feel validated. They want to feel that what they have to say, their story, their thoughts, their feelings are valid. And when we one-up them, we diminish that for them. You don't listen to what they have to say. That one goes without. The other one is never sticking to your word, and this is this little word that we have in our English vocabulary called integrity, right? So if I say that I'm going to do something, then I do it, and I show up on time for that. So being punctual about that, and then knowing, so when we can do that, our friends know that they can count on us and trust us. Making sure they're okay. So we talked about that. Reaching out, making sure if something doesn't seem right, that you ask them that you ask what's going on. Know when to be serious and when to have fun. So not to like kind of skirt the tough issues underneath the rug, or just to kind of walk around some things, but to know when you need to be serious and have a conversation so that you can meet that other person's need. Go the extra mile when they ask you to help. So if somebody asks me to help, I know that they really need help, because we're not often, in our very individual society, we don't often ask for help. And so when they do need it, I really go the extra mile. Don't give up on them in their darkest hour. So sometimes we have fair weather friends, have you heard of that before? That they're around when it's all fun, they're around when it's all going okay, but then in their darkest hour. And I think for just some of the clients that I'm working with right now have been deeply and tragically affected by the mass murders in Las Vegas. You can probably hear it in my voice as I talk about it, but they are in some pretty dark hours. And so while those funerals have been kind of done and gone, they're still really struggling with that. And so, where are you during that time when you're their friend, when, kind of the traditional stuff is gone, but you're still really dealing with a lot of grief and loss issues. Making them feel wanted. And that's the inviting them to things, including them reciprocating that invitation so that they know that you're interested, that there's a mutual interest in maintaining this friendship, or maintaining, better yet, establishing this friendship, right? Telling them that that you have their back, that you'll be there. So when you're in a conversation, so I'm often in these kind of conversations, like at Bunko, the neighborhood dice party, and somebody starts talking about somebody else. And what do? Do you add on to it? Do you heap onto it? Or do you start to tell, add to that conversation about what a great person that person is? So think about that when we're in some of those conversations. Or what do we do when we don't want to partake in those conversations? Because that doesn't build our friendships up. It eventually things get back to people, and it destroys our relationships. Understanding and respecting boundaries. This is a hard one. Sometimes, but to know kind of where we stop and the other person begins, and to be able to respect boundaries in our physical boundaries, but also our emotional boundaries. To know, that my friend is really dealing with that situation right now, and that is really tough, but you don't have to take on that. That is their responsibility to manage. You're there to love them, to listen to them, to support them as you can, but you don't have to take on their issues. And sometimes I think we can take on because we want to care for people. That's not always very effective. Be honest and constructive when needed. And I really err on the side of when somebody asks me, I will give my opinion and I will be honest about it in a very kind and loving way, but I don't just give it unless they ask. So So a few more, introduce them to other people. So this is what we could do in Minnesota, right? As we all kind of huddle in our groups and stay with the same group that we've been with since high school. Being able to introduce your new neighbor to all the other neighbors, having a party where they're all invited. So your new neighbors can meet the other people that are on your block, or somebody new at work, inviting them to have lunch with you rather than just staying in your little core group of people. A new person at the gym, if you are a group that works out together, inviting them with you after coffee or out for coffee or something. Jump to the rescue when asked, again, so be that responsive friend. Don't bring up uncomfortable subjects. We probably all know our friends' hot buttons, and so what are the standard ones? Like, we don't talk about religion, we don't talk about politics. Are those the two? And what?
And money.
And money. Okay, so yeah,
Politics and
don't
religion.
talk about the money stuff. So to be conscientious of those uncomfortable subjects that we know might be triggering for our friend. Be okay with gaps in conversation. It's okay if you're in a conversation with somebody and there's silence. Sometimes that's just exactly what the introverted people in our world need. Because a lot of words is a lot of words for an introverted person. Extroverts have lots of words because we think out loud, right? But an introvert needs time to just kind of take things in, to listen, to absorb. And they're not always the first one with an answer to something, because when they do talk, what they're going to say is going to be really well thought out. So it's kind of like that commercial of when E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. That's kind of how it is sometimes with introverted people, right? Because you're kind of taking everything in, you're synthesizing it, and then you're going to speak. Be dependable. Show up. Be there for them. And this next kind of series I put in here is, I think one of the things that happens, and maybe this goes back to my middle school years, so, is learning how to apologize. Because we're not all perfect. We're not always going to do it right. And to know that when we have acted in a way in our relationships that have gone against our values about relationships and friendships, that we're able to apologize. And I think it's probably one of the best things that we can do in our relationships. And along with that is the how do I forgive? And forgive doesn't necessarily mean to forget it, but it means that you're going to forgive. And that the forgiveness is a gift that you give to yourself, that you're not going to harbor ill feelings or emotions towards another person, but that you're going to be able to forgive them and kind of move on from that. Which is my next point, I think. Whoops! Which is my next point. I might go back if I can. Okay, there we go. To be a grace extender. And then, so one of the books that I read a long time ago, if I can remember it, is What's So Amazing About Grace by Philip Yancey. Has anybody ever read that book? It was probably, it shifted my entire paradigm about what I'm called to be as a Christian. And to judge, but to extend grace to others. And it's probably the most profound thing. And I think these three things go kind of hand in hand. To be able to apologize, to forgive what I need to forgive, and to extend grace. To know that, people make mistakes, they're not perfect, and we're all on a journey where we're learning as we go along, and to be able to give people grace. Okay, I have a long list of these. Know how to show you're happy for them. So that's another one where sometimes we can get this little jealousy thing going on, or it kind of goes back to that one-upping thing I talked about. But to just be genuinely happy when somebody reaches a goal, when they get the promotion, when, whatever is going on in their life, to be genuinely happy for them. Show small gestures on occasion. So small gifts, things like that. Say yes and make time for them. We've talked about that. Keep in touch and make sure you don't drift apart. I think I'm not a huge social media person, but I think that this is one way that we can use social media in a positive way. So send in a quick text message. Hey, just thinking about you today. I hope you're having a great day. Facebook. What else is out there? I think my kids are on some Snap thing. Snapchats? Okay. What else? Instagram. So there's a lot of these things that I don't do, but I think you can use them for a positive thing to help you stay connected one-on-one with other people. Be tolerant. We're all different. We all have a different point of view. And to to be able to listen to that, again, without judging, to give somebody our ear and listen, and to tolerate our differences. The other, I just want to go back this for a second, because it's amazing what we can learn from other people when we can tolerate the differences, and how they can open up our world to see things and view things in a very different way. And then accepting others without conditions. So sometimes that's hard when you don't fit into our perfect little box. So, and that's the end. So, thanks for listening, you guys. I hope I didn't, did I go over my time?
I think you're fine.
Okay.
That was great.
So, I am a therapist in Eden Prairie as part of the Cashman Center, so thanks for giving me this opportunity to talk with you guys.
Thanks, Camille.
So.
So you practice right here in Eden Prairie, and
I do.
the people that you typically work with are?
Oops, am I going to be feel if I do that? Okay.
Oh,
Let's see, I work with a pretty broad range of clients, kind of age range. I think the youngest client that I have right now is 14. I don't usually go lower than 14. And then I think that my most mature client is probably 60 or 70 years old. And I deal with, clients, or I kind of help clients with some pretty serious mental illnesses. And then I also help people just with adjustment, just adjusting to anxiety and stress, and kind of figuring out new coping skills. I work a lot with clients who have some pretty complex trauma. So childhood trauma, but also, like the clients that I have right now that have been affected by the shootings in Las Vegas. So some immediate kind of recent traumas, as well as some childhood traumas, and then continued traumas throughout their life. So I do that, eating disorder clients, relationship issues. I kind of work the whole gamut. So.
Cool. Well, thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thank you
So
much.
lots of things that we could do to be great friends, to have good friends, and to nurture those friendships. So we're going to meet in our small group, but before we do that, let's pray, and then we can go ahead and meet. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today in awe of what you did for us, what you showed us. You showed us love by taking the cross for us, by sending your Son to come and live on this earth, to show us how to love, to show us how to live, and to set us free from our sins. And so I pray today that we would continue to live a life for you, bring glory to your name, and as your word says, showing love to those around us. And so I pray that we can have a great rest of our night tonight, that we can have a great conversation. And I pray that your mighty hand would be upon each and every one of us, for all those that could be here and for all those that aren't here. I pray that you would give us the strength to do the right things, give us the strength to be good friends, to take care of these bodies, these temples that you blessed us with. I thank you for all you've given us, and I pray that the devil would flee from us. He has no place over our lives. He has no claim over us. And so I pray this in Jesus' name.